Welcome. You
Good.
are officially the newest member of the Simpler Health faculty coming on board as a coach. How do you feel?
Yeah, good. Thanks for taking a chance on me.
It is a chance. Don't screw it up. Okay.
Yeah, no pressure.
No, it's awesome. So you've been through the whole process yourself a couple of times, yeah? And first time with me, and then you went away and had a baby, and then tried. Share with me from then because Trevor had been looking after you when you came back. So share with me where you're at then briefly and how you got back into the game.
Yeah, so obviously when you have a baby, so I did the protocol with you, and then the protocol makes you your hormone, like corrects your hormones. So I was like quite fertile, and I was meaning to have a baby anyway, so it was fine, all worked out. Um and then obviously after you have a baby, things like during the pregnancy, and things can get pretty out of hand in regards to your weight. Well, they certainly did for me, and not overly, but then, I just fell off the bandwagon and wanted to do it again because I didn't finish it the first time. And as we know, it's the first phase is the easiest, and it's the maintenance that's actually the hardest part. So I never learned the maintenance. So I was like, I've got to do it and do the maintenance side. So then I went through with Trevor, and I was like, oh no, it's not Dean, but Trevor's Dean 2.0 anyway. So
I'm sure he'd
he
be
got the
thrilled
job
to,
done. And then I
yeah, he'd
lost
be thrilled to hear that.
13 kilos the second time with Trevor. So yeah.
Wow. So people understand what happens is when people gain weight and they're metabolically unwell, often some of the sex hormones get trapped in the fat tissue. And so when you lose the weight, and there can often be this sort of bolus release of estrogen. And for those, I do need to say for those that do have a concern about estrogen receptor sensitive cancer risk, that doesn't pose in reality any risk. In fact, it actually empowers your body to stave off cancers by correcting your metabolic dysfunction. So, but anyway, with the extra estrogen, women become hyperfertile. And we do need to instruct those younger women who are on protocol that if they are sexually active, to take precautions if they don't want to get pregnant, even if they are on the oral contraceptive pill. However, those that maybe do need a helping hand to start a family or expand their family, nutritional intervention is a great way to do it. So kudos to you.
Yeah, and I that actually blows my mind that that is just not known, that losing weight can release those estrogens and just clear the body of hormones, and that, and then you can fall pregnant easily that way. Like, it's pretty crazy that it's just not that well known, I think. And I actually gave the phase one sheet, which has what to eat, what to take, when the timings and the supplements and all that, that we give our phase one clients. I gave it to a friend, and this friend has a particularly high level of integrity, and she actually followed it without a coach, which a lot of people can't do.
Yes.
And she ended up falling pregnant, and she was like, Emily, like, I don't even know how this happened. Like, obviously she did, but she also was like, this is crazy. So I like to think that I had some part to play in her third child.
Hey, good on you. Yeah, wow. Wow. And then, that can make a big difference to couples and families, and then obviously once, they conceive, then they shouldn't stay on that protocol. It is quite restricted, but you can learn some key principles from that protocol that you can apply to the gestational period and even post, and then post weaning certainly come back and correct whatever it is that you want to correct. So you lost the weight again with Trevor, and then how did you end up being part of the Simpler Health team?
Well, for those people who have been on the protocol and experienced like hitting your goal weight, there's just like nothing like it. Like, I just remember that so vividly, and then just the opportunities that started to come up in my life, and just that feeling of being free and having myself like complete, like out of the way, so that I could just be present out here with people, and just I just wanted to, I was like, that's really good. Like, what else in life is like that? And I was like, why not provide that for other people? So I just got really excited about it. And then, obviously learning how to be a coach is a whole nother thing. And I've been like, oh my God, what am I getting myself into? But I also like it as an opportunity to keep myself accountable and keep playing and not retract back into my shell, and all of that as well. So I guess, yeah, that they were my motivators for
Yeah.
for coming on, for asking if I could come on board, and I'm loving the journey, definitely.
Well, for everyone listening, don't tell Emily this, but she's really freaking awesome. And Trevor and I wanted to work with her, and we created the opportunity for Emily to jump on board. And now speaking to you again, Emily, there's something that you can bring that I think could make an enormous difference. So a little bit more about you. You're a wife, mother, an entrepreneur, and you've got a big commitment to make a difference to people, clearly, in helping your friend conceive, etc. Share with me, what do you see as the opportunity for you in what you want to fulfill for yourself in your own life in working with the Simplr Health team?
Well, I mean, pretty much what I just said. Like, I think if you can find a way in life to provide happiness, it sounds kind of cheesy, to other people, then it's like this reciprocal kind of thing. And yeah, I don't know. I mean, just pretty much what I said. Like, I want to be able to provide that to other people, because I know what it's like to just be so absorbed by and just uncomfortable in your own skin. And I think that everyone has, a lot of people know what they're meant to feel like, and then they
And
also don't know what they could feel like as well. But there's like this deep knowingness that I should do something about it, and then there's all this information out there and the confusion, and I'm like, well, here's like the gold, and like I just wanted to share that, and I wanted to use it to find my own self-expression as well, because um yeah, like I think it's easy to get bogged down in, household duties and motherhood and stuff. And I wanted to not have that be an excuse for not doing things in my life that I like I want to do as well. So
good on you. Well, this it's how it started for me as well. Is I just had this real want to be able to contribute to people and make a difference in the world. And I find life sings when I'm out here contributing and making a difference to others, and not necessarily so obsessed in trying to figure out my own lot and what's going on in my own head. I'd rather be out here working with what's going on in your head or whoever else is in front of me. And I made that difference to a whole bunch of people. And it's like, the next experiment was, could I train somebody else to do what I've been able to do and accomplish with people? And so Trevor was really experiment number one. Well, experiment number two, it's like, could I produce the outcomes consistently enough and do it in such a way that people can't shut up about it? And so they were willing to share it. And that's really when you transform your health, what else do you do with that transformation other than give it away and contribute it to other people? So could I deliver on these clinical outcomes with the science, the scientific education, with the clinical advisory team and my scientific advisory team, and piece it all together in a way that produces the outcomes and it causes an explosion of aliveness, really, with the people that I'm working with? That was experiment number one. Experiment number two was, could I train someone else to be able to deliver on that as well? And that was Trevor, right? And then it's like, okay, how can we expand this further? What demographics, what cohorts that are we not reaching, or do we not have an access to, or can we not powerfully recreate? And, Emma Nedov, she came on board and she gives us access to that younger female demographic, but also that athletic cohort. And, she had a complete transformation from completely out of the game of gymnastics to sorting her own health out with Simplr Health. I coached her for 3 years, put her through the nutrition training, etc. Now she's fully qualified, as is Trevor, and making a big difference to a number of people, and found her own power to go back in a new context to compete. And now she's going to the Olympic Games. And then you bring access to another demographic or cohort, which is, a little bit older, mothers. You kind of create the world of family, and you've got commitments to the health and well-being of your kids as well. And you can do that from a mama's perspective as well. So I think there's a huge, huge market opportunity for us to work together to have that impact, I think, where it really matters, and that is families transforming the nutritional environment such that the kids, the next generation, grow up with a better understanding of nutrition and health, and grow up healthfully with better brains so they can solve all the problems that you and I and our parents created in the world. And I think that's the real access to make a difference. So if that's what inspires you, then I'm all for it, letting you know.
Yeah. And I think on that, something I've noticed as a parent, having gone through the protocol twice, I noticed how much I used food as a reward. So one of the biggest things that I would tell, yeah, parents is like, why, like, rewarding kids with food? Like, why do we do that? And it's just rife. Um, and yeah, so I think it's an interesting topic. But let's talk about your experience with people's barriers in terms of like putting themselves into a program to lose weight, because this is obviously weight loss, but it's about health, it's about long-term vitality. um, what are the trends that you see, and why do you think people are confused and not just jumping into something like Simplr Health? Like, it's, when knowing it's so good and knowing it works every time if you do it as designed.
Goodness. So I think there's, firstly, weight loss is not necessarily included in people's view of health restoration. So there's weight loss, and then there's health and vitality, or health and fitness is what most people, how they language it. And even health and fitness are two distinct phenomena. So immediately what you start to notice is that people have very little distinction around health. So they're not in the world of health, what it means, what the language means, and even that weight loss is, in fact, health care.
Yeah.
On many different respects. I mean, people have a general understanding that, oh yeah, if I lost the weight, I know it would be better for my health. That's typically secondary to the primary concern of looking better.
Yes, yeah, you're right. That's exactly what's going on.
Yeah. And then, health and fitness are two distinct phenomena as well. And so when people say, I want to make a difference and impact my health, the first actions that they usually take are in the realm of fitness.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. Take out a gym membership, hire a personal trainer, and all of that, right? Now, that too is important, but if you're metabolically unwell, it can often be counterproductive, especially if you're all of a sudden, look, just to be frank, there's a fatitude amongst many people, and this fatitude is a way of being, or ways of being, that have gotten people into that state in the first place, and it includes an impulsiveness. So when you all of a sudden get motivated, then you go hell for leather, right? And it's great to get you started, but that's not sustainable, right? And when you go hell for leather in the gym and you exercise to failure without altering your diet, without having any real understanding of nutrition, you're just going to cause yourself to eat more, right? Because when you exert energy, then you're going to have to put the calories back in if you don't correct your underlying biochemical profile. If you're hyperinsulinemic, if you're insulin resistant, you're just going to end up hungry, right? And tired. And if you exercise to failure, which people do because we're addicted to hard work and you've got to work really, really hard to get the results. So you'll exercise to failure and jack your stress hormones right up. And that can be inhibitory to losing the weight and restoring healthful metabolic function as well. So there's all of these distinctions. I think fundamentally, I mean, this is a philosophical question across the board in healthcare, right? Is why doesn't healthcare get the investment that it really deserves? Why don't people invest in healthcare? Well, people don't invest in their own health. So why would, just at the individual level? And it really does have to start, I think, with a powerful context in investing in one's health. And firstly, you got to know what you're investing in. You're only going to invest in something if there's a foreseeable return. You're going to invest in something that's of interest to you and that you know something about. Otherwise, you're investing blindly, right? So I think that's where it's got to start, as a willingness to invest. And people need to start there. And whatever. There's so much information available, and there was previously, and that's why I started kind of trying to make things simpler. And more science is coming out, but it's not necessarily from the scientists. It's from pseudoscientists or podcasters, and which is fantastic. And people are learning more and more, and that knowledge is absolutely critical in our attempts to advance health and the current situation. But as you and I both appreciate and know very well, more knowledge doesn't necessarily carry the day.
No, definitely not, because people, what I learned through coaching and having coached, it's people's internal state that really needs to be worked on when it comes to health, really, which is really interesting. There's a huge personal development. I don't know if people say personal development anymore. I mean, they used to, but personal development aspect to health, huge.
There is, and it's amazing the number of Trevor and I, we kind of sit back and think about this a lot, because we see people that we've coached and they've got whatever life they've got before they come to us, and then they'll let us coach them, and there really is a letting us coach you. There's a generosity both ways. We provide everything that we're expert in, but then there's got to be the willingness of the client to be coachable. And we always appreciate that. And they'll accomplish mind-blowing, miraculous results. Sometimes it's a struggle. Sometimes it's pretty linear on the way down. And then most people sustain that. Some people, they might gain the weight back again. But it's not to discount or discredit the transformations that had to take place on the journey. For every kilogram comes a story. And every time you shed a kilogram, you've got to let go of something, some view of yourself, some view of life. You've got to let go of some perceived threat that fat was there to protect you from in the first place, right? Or you got to forgive yourself or others, or whatever process you go through that we support people in. And that leaves people free to be and free to act. And we see them expressing themselves in wonderful ways, like from, winning reality TV shows, or doing really well in those types of shows as well. Going to the Olympic Games, or becoming a leader in a field that's gaining some traction in neurodiversity, or or whatever the field is. People create new careers and new businesses, or create relationships that in a new way. So all of that are the kind of results beyond what the scale says that are absolutely important, and more so what we're about here at Simpler Health.
Mm. Yeah, I always remember something you said to me when you coached me, and you said it's easier to do than to not do, and that really stuck with me. And it goes back to what you were saying about people like going, okay, I want to get healthy, let's get a gym membership and let's just go for it. And it's like that's actually easier to do than to like stop and like not eat certain things. Like I find that really interesting and true. And I always think of that. I'm like, no, it's easier to go to the gym right now than it is to not eat this piece of food.
Is that how it shows up for you? Like going to the gym, or like what are some examples for you where's my voice
Yeah,
popped up in your head?
particularly when it comes to exercise, because it's easier to it is pretty easy for people to exercise. Like it depends, but for a lot of people, like I'm part of a fitness group, and it's like people come week after week after week. Like they've been going for years. It's like this little cult group. Like the trainer is like just the loveliest human on the planet, and everyone goes, and it's a social thing. And but there's just no difference made. Like everyone looks the same. And I'm sure they're gaining muscle, but you can't see that muscle underneath body fat often. And I just hear the same complaints by the same people. And um, and I'm sure there's increased fitness, but I'm like, if you only just like stopped for a second and reassessed some lifestyle choices, maybe you would get that result that I can hear that you're desiring. Um, so yeah, and then that's up to me as a coach to really powerfully share like what I can provide and what we do at Simpler Health, I suppose. So
Yeah. I mean, what we provide is many distinctions that often fly in the face of what's commonly known to be true. People know that you should exercise a lot. That's the answer to everything. I mean, this is the track that the Australian government went down, um, in around 2000. That was when we had the Olympic Games here in Sydney. And it was around that time the Australian government really started to adopt this whole notion that 10,000 steps a day matters, right? And it was foreseeable. We knew that the obesity epidemic was really going to cause some real issues. And it had been coming for some time. Most endocrinologists, for example, the older endocrinologists were trained in type 1 diabetes, thyroid issues, some endocrine disorders associated with the reproductive organs, things like real interesting diseases. Now all of the attention and focus has to go towards type 2 diabetes. 90% of the patients in renal wards on dialysis are type 2 diabetics. Orthopedic surgeons having to amputate toes and feet and limbs every day because of non-healing wounds and gangrenous, endpoints in type 2 diabetic patients. James Mukey, a very famous ophthalmologist, almost all of the patients that he has that go blind are from type 2 diabetes. And so it's a real issue. And obviously weight gain and overweight and obesity is a real problem. And 2/3 of the adult population in Australia are overweight, and half of that cohort are obese. But 90% plus of adults in Australia are metabolically unwell. So it's a massive, massive issue. And there was a Japanese company that created these pedometers, and as a marketing ploy, they said you should take 10,000 steps a day to sell more pedometers. But the Australian government adopted that approach, and everyone just thinks that, oh yeah, you have to exercise. That's the answer to obesity. And it hasn't been, and scientifically, it's just not possible anyway. People who think that you can out exercise your diet just need a mathematics tutorial. They just don't understand the complete disproportionality of how many calories you can stick in your face in a minute versus what it takes to burn that off with physical exertion. It's completely disproportionate. So I think culturally and in the condition of the environment in which we exist, there's real historical heritage forces at play that prevent people from just stopping and going, hang on a minute, what I've been doing clearly isn't getting me the result, right? Here's the problem that we've got to address. That's not true. Most people who attempt to impact their health and well-being don't do it, or don't do what they're attempting to do 100%. So there's always that little bit left in their head going, it's like, oh, but I knew I should have given it 100% and I didn't. So, and they keep going back, trying to do that and not getting the results, always invalidating their own efforts. And I must not want it enough, or I'm not committed enough. They're committed. I mean, human beings are committed. And, but what are you committed to? That's what you got to distinguish.
Yeah. Yeah. Interesting. And I think metabolically unwell, I think that even that people like that never gets said. You never hear that in the conversation of, oh, I need to, get healthy. I just think people don't understand what that means, and that's actually the foundation of why you've got so many persisting niggles in your body, or your life's just staying stagnant. It's because you're metabolically unwell.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and there's a real trend now. I mean, I have these conversations with professors and doctors, and here in Australia, in the US, and elsewhere, and there's a real fascination with the science around age reversal. And there are modalities and sort of treatment strategies that can potentially reverse aging. And everyone's fascinated with that because it's sexy. But that's not what most people need. Most people need to learn to not eat cake.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
you gotta learn sacrifice.
Mm.
I don't want people eating anything that looks like bread,
Yeah.
and the discipline that takes, and the rewiring of your brain. And there are forces at play physiologically that it's not necessarily about you. There's you, but you exist within this body, and this body's got like a metabolic rate and a nervous system and a microbiome and an immune system. And if your immune system's hyperactive, or if you've got low-grade chronic inflammation, and your gut microbiome's out of whack, and your gut's leaking, and if your brain's just overly excited over a long period of time with too much sugar. And in this day and age, unfortunately, it's the combo of high sugar plus excess screen time in younger developing brains. It's not really setting them up well for healthful habits as adults. And then you're not moving, and you're over consuming calories and so forth. I mean, you got a lot of stuff working against you, and the you that's in there desperate to find an answer and transform all of this. No one's just worked with you to distinguish what are the areas within your physiology that need to be reprogrammed, and can be. But how you do that is via an adaptive response to an environmental challenge. So you've got to create a sufficient challenge and stay in the challenge long enough for the biology to adapt. And that's the hard bit. You could learn all the science. I mean, with your friend, there was a compelling enough reason for her to just, and obviously she's a pretty integrous person, as you
Yeah,
said,
well,
and
she'd
followed
seen
it to the
my
letter.
result, so she was like, "That's enough for me." Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. So there's a world of inspiration and someone that she trusts
Mm.
as well. And I haven't, with Simpler Health, this is one of the reasons why we don't advertise and market and promote like every other company does, And, I think maybe we should, and, it'd be great for the business, but would it really, I don't know, there's something about you producing the result and you sharing the opportunity with someone else, and they just trust you. And then when they jump in, there's a committed context and a world of trust, and we can just get on with it way faster and produce the outcomes quicker. And, I don't know, maybe you might have, or everyone else has a different opinion about that. Like, I, there's so many other options out there that people could do if they just want to lose 5 or 6 kilograms. Big deal. That's not what we do. We work with people who want to cause a breakthrough result in their life, like something unprecedented. They want to get all the barriers out of the way and have the kind of physicality that would allow them to express their commitments powerfully in the world and produce the results that really leave them fulfilled and satisfied in life. That's kind of what we want.
Yeah. Yeah. And I guess that's not to scare anyone off in terms of like, you don't need to know what that you want to create a breakthrough in your life and what area and stuff, because it really is just like it just naturally happens. And I think what also holds people back, and myself included, is that I was scared to get like to come out, to get busy. And that is part of that, each kilogram has its story. It's like just once you get going, you realize how much you're protecting yourself. And people will protect themselves in all kinds of ways. They'll, like, even with friends, like you go out, life doesn't stop once you go on the protocol. You can't just live in isolation for as long as it takes. Well, you can, but we don't recommend doing that. We recommend challenging yourselves in all different types of environments. There's going to be birthday parties. There's going to be going out for dinner. And it's like, okay, well, how do I choose powerfully, and how do I enroll my own environment to understand what I'm up to in a way that doesn't, you don't, a lot of people are worried about how they look. Like, and then you all of a sudden doing something against the grain. You're not having that cocktail. You're not, eating that pizza. It's like, that's part of the process. So there's all these opportunities within it to identify, to understand that you are more than your body, and you're more than whatever internal state is going on for you. And that's who you really are outside of what you usually are used to. So yeah.
Oh, very well articulated. That's beautiful. And as a mum, like, going on protocol, this is often something that when parents are looking to be coached by someone from Simpler Health, how do I manage my family? I've got to cook for the kids and all of that. Share with me and the listeners your experience, and what were some of the sort of barriers you had to break through?
There's a lot to that, because I have a husband with a lot of dietary requirements. Like, he doesn't eat dairy and eggs, and he's particular, and he's very strict on that as well. And then I've got two growing boys, so they have different metabolic needs than I do. So there really is just like thinking about multiple people all the time. And it's just like putting yourself, like you said, putting yourself in a structure where you can learn and practice. And the more you practice, the more you can expand your plate. Instead of, like, that's kind of pardon the pun, but it's like you just get so quick at it. You're like, yep, this, and then you just know how to do it in the end. But it does take a bit of finessing to get there. And I'm always finessing still. But I know what I'm willing to eat and not willing to eat. I know what my husband is, and you just, you got to prepare. That is one of the main pillars for doing the program, is preparation. So you learn that. If you're not used to doing things that way, then this is a really good opportunity to learn how to be prepared. And I think most people don't think about, I mean, there is a whole cohort of people doing meal planning and meal prepping, the whole meal prepping culture.
Yes.
So that, there are people doing that, but a lot of people don't think that way. They just leave things to chance. If they're going on a trip, they don't plan. If they're going to the airport, they don't plan their food. Like, and what one of the biggest lessons I learned is that you cannot leave it to chance because it's very hard to find. It's not hard to find protocol friendly foods, but it is in like if you know where to, like, they're at the supermarket, it's easy to find. But if you are hungry and you're not organized with food, then you got to deal with that, and it's much better to be prepared. Sorry, that was a bit of a tangent, but
No, it's brilliant. Look, and what there is, if you distinguish that way of thinking, there's two things that come to mind. One is intuitive eating. I think that's the language that kind of gets thrown around these
yeah.
days. Eat intuitively. And I think that gets misunderstood often as meaning you got to understand your body and eat how you feel in that moment. And look, if you're metabolically unwell, you don't have a great read on your own biology because there's such a thing as a signal to noise ratio. And your biological signals are kind of dampened by too much noise. If you're tired, if you're sleep deprived, if you've got brain fog, if you're overinflamed, if your gut's bloated, if your joints are achy, if you're not satisfied with your lot in life and how things are going, and there's negative conversations about where you're at, all of this noise, how can you hear your biological signals?
Mm.
And if you don't understand what those biological signals are, how do you know how to interpret them accurately and how to respond appropriately? And so intuitive eating, I think, if I can interpret that the way that I'm seeing it, is actually the end point where you're a busy mum and you just know, you understand the macronutrient combination, you understand the food constituents and how to combine them and who needs what and for what, and it just becomes kind of like the air that you breathe. You just know what you're doing now. But that took time and practice, and you've got to invest yourself in actually learning the fundamental distinctions of nutritional biochemistry and have an as-lived experience, almost like experiment with yourself. Okay, let's do this the way it's designed. It's almost like Lego, right? You buy your kids Lego, and my daughter, she would just follow the instructions to the letter. And if something doesn't work out, I wouldn't fix it for her. She's got to go back in the instructions and see where did she step over something? Where did she not follow it with integrity, right? Now, after you learn how to build it and everything, you've got the foundations, you've got the basic training in all of that. And now you can modify it and take it apart and rebuild it however you want. But you've got that basic training. And if someone hasn't had power with their health, and they jump in on protocol, you got to do it to the letter.
Mm.
And that's how you learn, is you get on the court, you don't figure it all out beforehand. No, you put yourself at issue, you go to work and you learn and you allow yourself to be coached, and it's uncomfortable most of the time. And but that's how you discover it to the point where it just becomes, really natural. So intuitive eating is a big one. What was the other one? Bloody hell, I've lost my train of thought now.
You were saying intuitive eating is end game, is what you want to aim
Yeah,
for.
that's where we want to leave people at.
Yeah.
And so then um, you can create the kind of environment for others to be able to impact their health, and, coming on board and being an active participant in Simplr Health is you just do it in a far more powerful, intentional way. And often we get to work with more complicated states of physicality, and the medical, advisors get a little bit more involved, and we can triage people appropriately where they need to go. And it's not necessarily just the weight loss, but it's like, what else? What else? Do you need regenerative medicine in your joints? Do you want some stem cells? Do you want, do you need to address your neuronal healing process? And we can advise certain clinical environments and modalities in that regard. Are there treatments available overseas, like immune cell therapy for cancer treatment? Can we triage you to our clinical partners in Tokyo? I mean, that's the advantage of Simplr Health. Otherwise, there are many other companies and groups out there that help people just lose weight. That's not just what we do. But yeah, I can't remember what else I was going to say, but I think look, if people just took away, that's the end point, is being able to eat intuitively. That's a massive thing to have gained in your life.
Yeah, there's just a big gap for people to fill in the process of getting there, because often your taste buds are just not where they should be at either. We've just bombarded them too much. So, and that's something I see with my clients, is getting used to, eating foods that they perhaps just avoided, or so that's a big part of it as well. So yeah, it seems to be, someone told me that, because I've always been like, oh, what should I do? What should I do in life? That whole conversation. And someone said to me, oh, just look for the need of the time. And I'm like, oh, okay. And I just do really feel like there's a massive need for this type
Yes.
of approach to health. That I don't see. I see a lot of health. I see a lot of people getting fit. I'll see the gym culture, is like, I see that a lot on my feeds, the gym culture, and the nutrition as well. But if you are struggling to lose weight, I think that's where Simplr Health really is just so crucial, because it gives you the fundamental distinctions for what is going on in the process. And if you're eating porridge for breakfast trying to lose weight, is that the best approach? It's scientifically no, right? So
Yeah, look, and there will be situations where people can lose weight eating those types of foods.
yeah.
They just create a caloric deficit and they exercise. I mean, there are groups that online, which is fantastic. It's good that it gets, in certain cohorts, gets them motivated and gives them some structure, which is fantastic. And especially for men, there's some personal trainers out there that have great profiles online, and they're pretty tough with their approach. And I think that's, appropriate for a lot of guys.
Mm.
And they just do create a sufficient calorie deficit, and they make them go to the gym and do resistance training 4 times a week, and cardio 2 times a week, or something like that. And that, you will lose the weight. But for those that are insulin resistant, it's very different physiology we're trying to address. And people who, mostly the ones that we get, are the ones that have tried everything, or the ones that want a bit more science, and they want to learn that, they want to really learn what the heck is going on, such that they're at the source of it themselves much later on in life, well beyond the time that they get to spend with us. So, there are those that have tried everything, and also those that have a lot of other things going on. It's, people aren't just obese, they're obese with other physiological ailments, whether it's osteoarthritis, whether it's some autoimmune condition and symptoms associated with that. Neuronal healing is very, very difficult. So particularly, men, if they played collision sports younger in life and they took some knocks to the head, and now they're metabolically unwell and lonely, or dealing with various stresses in life, from financial hardship to relationship breakdowns, difficulty in seeing families, whatever it might be going on for people. It's very, very difficult to motivate yourself and get up for the game to do what's workable on your own. You need an environment in which to transform. And you know, hopefully Simpler Health has been providing that for people, and we keep evolving and looking to see what we can expand on or do better or add in. And you know, I think you're a powerful addition, you know, with your experience. Tell me, jumping in, because you know, we do coach from a very high level, and you know, and I consider myself a coach's coach, like real coaching,
Yes.
right? And I don't beat around the bush.
It's yeah, it is scary. Like it's as much as it's fun, it's it is scary, but that's what transformation is sometimes. It's like you want to put yourself in an environment where people are going to say things to you that people that your friends won't, or your friends and family won't say. Well, maybe your family will, but your friends won't. And there's something really powerful in that. And I think if you can, I think sorry, I don't know what you were going to say. Were you going to ask me something around that?
No, keep going. I think you're going in the
Yeah,
right track.
I think I had to shift my perspective, my context for getting coached by someone like you who's so highly trained in coaching, like in the coaching space. I don't know if I can say that. And I had to be like, no, if Dean says something to me that's going to be a bit like I'm lucky because it means that he sees something in me that it's worth him just going for it, like just cutting through any of my BS. And yeah, it's painful, it hurts, and it hasn't happened very often, but I think it's like, okay, next level, and sometimes it's necessary.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, thanks for seeing it that way, because that's how it is. You know, you don't want a coach. If you have a coach you don't want a nice coach. In my experience, being nice, whenever I've been nice, it's always, almost always, all about me.
Mm.
Like I'm trying to appease you so I can survive our interaction or relationship better, right? But if I can say something straight, you don't have to be a jerk, you don't have to be hurtful or anything, but you can say it straight. I mean, people are pretty big. And anytime I've ever asked anyone, hey, can I just say it straight? No one's ever said no because my feelings are fragile. No one's ever said that to me, right? They always go, yeah, give it to me straight.
Yeah.
And they take it, and it's like valuable. So you got to create the context in which you're able to be that way with people, and you know you're constantly generating this background of relatedness, of love and compassion, but it's ruthless compassion. It's not just, you know, you're nice and sympathetic to people's sensitivities. It's like, screw your sensitivities. Do you want to reverse your metabolic syndrome or not?
Mm.
Like, let's get on with this, right? So um no, I acknowledge you for being willing to jump in and be that person. You know, it's I've got a huge listening of you, and I think that there's an enormous amount for you to contribute. And you know, you've been learning about the science, which is really, really great. And that'll take time before you start owning that you know more than most nutritionists in this country will ever learn. And then as a coach, it doesn't matter. Like, so long as you're there for people and it's a dual accountability and you're standing shoulder to shoulder with them in the fire together, for intentionally for the fulfillment of an outcome that wouldn't be possible without that partnership, right? And that's the magic of it. And you learn and you transform along the way. And it really is like the most fulfilling experience. And it's not easy, and it's tough, and it's draining. And every week we get together and kind of recreate each other, and you know, on those Simpler Health leadership calls, and which empowers, you know, your colleagues to get back out there and keep making a difference. And we keep supporting each other throughout. But you know, you said earlier something about personal development.
Mm.
What's great about transformation is, yeah, it's categorized within that realm of personal development, but we're not here to develop our personality. That's already well formed. You know, people get obsessed with, oh, I need to work on myself and I need to heal my traumas. And, to a large part, a lot of that is true. However, the way that people go about it, it keeps them stuck in the experience of always being traumatized.
Mm.
And transformation is not changing something about you or your past. No, transformation is actually letting it be just as it is, just as it's not. What happened, happened. It's not happening now. All that's persisting is whatever I've got to say about that. Maybe I really could let it go. And it frees you up to go create something other than what you've been tethered by.
Mm.
And what there is to go to work on that gets you out of all of that is not you. You're whole and complete and perfect just as you are and just as you're not. You can actually get to work on and be and perform and be active on fulfilling your vision and what's your legacy and what could you use this life to create in the world. And that really, then it's not about you. Who cares? I mean, I know for myself, I'm a screw up, I'm a failure. Who cares? I mean, that'll be on my tombstone. Dean will be born a loser, lived like one for most of his life, didn't give a damn about that, made a huge difference anyway.
Yeah. Yeah. It's almost like you using weight loss as the subject to practice the art of acting regardless of how you feel about something.
You got it.
Yeah.
You got it. Yeah. You got to create a game. That's why we create games and sports and challenges. It's training. And if you can create a context for your life, one of training and development, and it's like I used to be a soccer coach and coached senior women soccer here in Sydney in Division One, the eastern suburbs. And
Know that.
yeah, I used to coach. I was the inaugural coach for the first senior women's soccer team in Geelong to play in the Western Victorian Soccer Association. And prior to that, I was coach of the men's team and won some league championships and stuff. But look, at training, you get the players doing stuff like running in ladders through ladders with their knees high, or all kinds of different weird movements. And those movements, you don't want them moving like that in the game. Those movements are challenging and designed to develop something, to develop some skill sets, some agility, some quickness, from strength or explosiveness, such that when you're in the game of life, you're better prepared. Going back to what you said, it's all about preparation, 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 right? And one of our what do you call them? Ambassadors, Simplr Health ambassadors, is Cancho Glenn Coxon, this amazing martial artist, like martial arts royalty here in Australia. And he has this great conversation around challenges of choice. So you take on challenges in your life, like whether it be get a black belt in karate or run up Mount Kosciuszko or a marathon or whatever the challenge might be. You create these challenges such that you're better prepared for challenges of chance. Because you never know when a cancer diagnosis is going to show up, or an industry collapses and you got to figure out how to be resilient in the face of that with your own livelihood. Or there's a breakdown somewhere, and who are you going to be about that? So the universe is always going to be throwing stuff at you, and how well prepared and developed are you to meet that challenge head on and not be the one that cowers to it and runs away or hides or tries to pretend or changes the game because you're not willing to confront, or that you haven't got what it takes to meet it head on, right? So I think you got it. Absolutely. And as a coach, am I that passionate about helping people go from this big to this big? Not really. I mean, not really, but it's a platform, and it gives us an opportunity to interact with people, committed people that are willing to learn some new stuff and go beyond who they've known themselves to be to produce the result along the way they discover new aspects about themselves that they just knew they didn't know was possible. And we love seeing them kind of, when you take the barrier out of the way, people can just fly.
Mm.
And you will too. I mean, I'm not going to be running this forever, and you might take over with Trevor, and we'll
Yeah.
see, and get you trained up in all the cool stuff as well, and how to triage people into the sort of more advanced treatment modalities, and how to be that person in healthcare that supports a patient to go from this doctor to that specialist to this clinic to, how do you support them in their journey versus leaving the patient in this whole healthcare system mess, trying to figure out how to navigate it on their own.
Mm.
It's very there's a huge need for that as well. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Any other questions or anything else you want for me to bring up or address, or anything you want to share or say?
No, I mean, I think we covered a lot in an hour. We've been talking for an hour.
That's amazing. Hey?
Flew by. Yeah, no, I think we covered a lot of good, topics within. I mean, there's so many things you can talk about because it's, really the game of life over here at Simpler Health. So, so yeah, no, thank you. I actually, I always wanted to do one of these chats with you. So here we go.
We can do more. You just
That
say.
off the bucket list. But
Yeah.
I never thought it was possible. It was
Oh, there
like a weird like desire that not a weird desire. It was just like a little desire that I had. And I didn't think it was possible, and I didn't think about it. I kind of just filed it away. And then I started taking action. I went beyond my comfort zone and, doing, within the coaching world. And then the opportunity just came up. So that's sort of how it works, isn't it? It's like you take the action, you take the action, and then, you know,
yeah.
so
That's what it looks like to be coachable. So you can't work on yourself enough to get to the point where, okay, I'm coachable now,
mm,
and then jump into a coaching structure. No, you just got to get on the court and act. And then it's up to the coach to work with you whilst you're performing, whilst you're acting. If you're not acting, then any interactions, it's all hypothetical. When you're in there in the game, taking actions, doesn't matter if they're great or they suck, doesn't matter. What matters is that you're performing. Now the coach has something to work with.
mm,
Actions and performance can be tweaked and adjusted and empowered and directed, and but if you're sitting there, and this is for anyone that's listening, if you're sitting waiting for the right time that you're ready, and how do you know that you're ready? That you feel a particular way or a certain amount, you'll never get there. You just got to jump in.
yeah. And like time, money, yeah, are usually the main things, the main barriers for people.
It's what they say are the barriers,
Yeah, yes. So it's not that.
No, no, not at all. I mean, everyone's got a few minutes every week. People eat anyway.
Oh yeah, yeah. It's not the time. Yeah, you're right. I'm not thinking about it. Yeah.
And it's not even the money. I mean, if people did their budgets, and you got to do that work, you got to know, just like with your finances, what's coming in, what's going out. You got to get all over that stuff. And if you did an accounting on, what you put in your face.
Uber Eats bill.
Exactly. What are the outgoings and all of that. And then you want to look, it's like, what's my well-being? People say health and relationships are the two most important areas of my life, but okay, how much do you invest really? If they're that important, how much do you invest? And usually they're like, when everything else is sorted,
Mm.
then I might, if I've got the time or energy or space or whatever it is to give myself something in the area of health. Do you have a wellness or a well-being budget? What's your budget for your monthly budget for your well-being?
Mm,
You start small. It ought to be a minimum, what we charge per month. And all we're saying is give that to us, and we're going to develop you and create that structure where you get it in your head that there's this monthly allocation, and that's dedicated to my well-being, to the advancement of my health and vitality and blah, blah, blah. And then after you're done with us, that you have to figure out, we'll help people to, okay, where do I now invest this,
mm,
given where I'm at now with my health and what else I want to create with my life. It doesn't necessarily have to go to us. And then as your life expands, create bigger breakthroughs, you might invest more, right?
mm. Yeah, yeah. Yeah, I remember you saying that on the coaching call, and I thought, yeah, you're right. Like it is just you invest, you start here with us, and then you just keep building on that budget. And I had to learn that as well. I was like, oh, X amount per month for a coach, but I would, once you get the result, you're like, that was cheap. And also, I made my money back like tenfold because of the amount of opportunities I created in my life at that time. And I was like, oh, why was I worried about the money? Like, seriously, what a waste
Yes.
of thought space that was.
Yeah, look, and it happens from time to time, and sometimes my head gets stuck in that space as well, and that's all about, oh, what's in it for me, and what's my lot, and what do I get out of this, and I catch myself, and it's like, oh, let it go. What am I really committed to here? And it's contributing, making a difference, creating great clinical outcomes, breakthrough results, and expanding the field of regenerative and preventative medicine. And that's what I'm really passionate about. And then I get active, irrespective of how much is coming back my way. I just get active and start producing results in the world. It always comes back,
Mm,
always, without fail. Yeah.
okay.
So, hey, good on you. Thanks for this conversation. Let's do this more and more.
You.
And I work for you. So you just got to tell me anytime you want me to jump on a client call with you, anytime you want to do more of these or anything else that you dream up, you just let me know and use me as that resource to support you in building your client base. So together we can have more of an impact in the world.
Yeah, okay.
Okay.
Sounds good. Amazing.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Thanks, Emily.
Thanks, Dean.